Hello, I am Jyotika. Welcome to Excelling Psychology. In today's class, we will learn how to answer some questions from paper 1 of Oxford International AQA Psychology. I want to keep this video fairly brief, so I will not explain all the topics to you. Rather, my focus will be on answer writing to understand the questions, how we should understand them, and how we should write the answers. That is what I will be explaining throughout the video. This video is meant for those AQA students who are taking international curriculum, IL. So those who are in Oxford International AQA Psychology, though it can be helpful even to those students who have taken GCE or who are in the UK, because the questions are more or less the same, given that the syllabus is mostly the same in the international as well as in the UK curriculum. So all of you all can benefit from this video. Okay, let's begin with the questions. Also, I would like to tell you that these are actual questions from past papers. They had come in the June 2023 PS01, that's paper 1. So let's see. We know there can be 2 and 4 markers. The first question for memory. I'm taking section A because that's the first one. So the first question for memory was, the working memory model has the following components: the central executive, phonological loop, visuospatial sketchpad, and episodic buffer. So they've named all the components for us. We have to describe 2 of these components. That's the question. This is strictly an AO1 question because there's no scenario to which we have to apply our knowledge, and they haven't asked us for an evaluation. So it doesn't meet AO3 as well. Strictly AO1 meaning whatever we have learned in the textbook about any 2 of these components we can write down. Of course, we must be elaborate and specific and use good terminology to score well. We can take any 2 components of our choice. Personally, I'm just taking the central executive and the episodic buffer because I feel they're a little briefer to describe, given that each is worth only 2 marks in this question. So it's like it's an AO1 question, 2 marks for describing the first component, 2 marks for the second. When it comes to the visuospatial sketchpad, say for example, I would have to describe the inner scribe or the visual cache to put across my point that there is storage also and there's rehearsal of spatial information. Same is the case with phonological loop. I would have to mention the phonological store, which holds auditory information, and the articulatory loop, which helps to rehearse it. So I would just go by the central executive and episodic buffer because I feel they're a little briefer for me to describe, given the marks that have been allotted. Okay, we can answer these questions in a straightforward way. Needless to say that there is no requirement for an introduction or a conclusion. The central executive is the supervisory component of the working memory model. It monitors information incoming from the sensory register and allocates it for further processing. To either of the two slave systems, the visuospatial sketchpad and the phonological loop. This much is sufficient for 2 marks. Of course, there are examples which could be given of further elaboration, but keeping in mind it's for 2 marks, what is essential to central executive, what really defines it, we have given those points. The episodic buffer is the temporary storage which creates episodes or coherent forms of memory by integrating information from the visuospatial sketchpad, and the phonological loop. It also helps connect the working memory with long-term memory by integrating information from these two separate memory storages. A minor point here, but in case you want to use acronyms such as you want to use abbreviations such as VSS for the visuospatial sketchpad and PL for the phonological loop, just to be able to write faster. In that case, once at least you must give the full form, then you can say write in the bracket VSS and PL, and then onwards, instead of writing the full forms, you could use those terms, but make sure to explain once what do you mean by VSS and PL. So what I want you to note in what I've written in the answer is that I have strictly focused on AO1. I have given whatever I've learned from the textbook about these two components, and I have used good terms. For example, I have named the sub-slave systems VSS and PL. I have also said that episodes are coherent memories. What we mean by using good language or good terminology is not to use casual language. Use language which indicates that you're a student of psychology. So don't use language such as an episode is, some students write a collection of memories. First of all, that's not very accurate also. And collection is a very loose term. It does not indicate coherence. Or they would say that episodic buffer has information for some time. It's better to call it a temporary storage. Instead of saying for some time, that does not indicate is it a storage system or is it just a thought process like a cognitive process. So try to use good terms as you learn them in the textbook. Okay, let's come to the next question. If we just take a glance at it only, it becomes apparent that it is an AO2 type of question. Of course, there's going to be an AO1 component to it also because it's for 6 marks. So surely we'll have to define some things and apply some things. It's just that whenever you see a scenario question, be prepared to answer as per AO2 requirements application. First, let's read the scenario, then we'll discuss more on this. Lee is driving with his friend James in a car. It is strange. Lee says, I can clearly remember my first driving lesson and how difficult it was trying to drive the car. But now, after driving for several years, I can do it without thinking. James replies, I love driving, and I remember that as a child, I could name every make and model of the cars we passed on the road. Outline. The command term is outline. 3 types of long-term memory. Briefly explain how each type of memory is shown in the conversation between Lee and James. Outline 3 types of long-term memory. They have asked us to apply to the scenario, but before that, they have very specifically told us to outline those memories. So we need to name whichever memory we are going to be referring to and define it very briefly. And then we have to explain how it is seen in the scenario. That means for out of 6 marks, this answer has AO1 worth for 3 marks and AO2 worth of 3 marks. Now AO1, as you know, is descriptive. So whichever memory we can identify in this scenario from our topic types of long-term memory, whatever we define of that will come within AO1, and whatever we apply into the scenario, like how those types of memory are being seen in this scenario, that all will count under AO2. Also, some students tell me, do we need to break into paragraphs? Like the first paragraph should only comprise of AO1 points and the second paragraph should have only AO2 points. There is no such hard and fast rule. Your writing style is up to you. If you prefer doing that, you do it that way. But how I prefer to apply it is, once I have named and defined one memory, immediately that particular memory I would like to show where it is in the scenario. So I keep going back and forth between AO1 and AO2. I just feel that it helps me to explain better. That's my writing style. So it's up to you how you want to write. Just make sure you justify 3 marks for AO1 and 3 marks for AO2. You will get to see my style as I write, how I go back and forth between meeting the two assessment objective requirements. Okay, now we have learned about three types of long-term memory: episodic, semantic, and procedural. Let's see in this scenario which ones we can see. I'll just put up the scenario again on the screen so that you can see my thought process when I'm answering. Lee says that he can clearly remember his first driving lesson. He can remember the lesson, means what must have happened in that lesson, he can remember that. And it was difficult for him to drive the car. Okay, let's just take it till there for now. Because this is clearly indicating one type of memory, which is episodic memory. Within types of long-term memory, you have learned that episodic memories are memories for events that one has experienced. Here Lee is talking about how his first driving lesson took place, what problems he had in that. He remembers that entire event. So this is indicative of episodic memory. First I'll write about this, then I'll discuss further types of memories. One type of long-term memory is episodic memory, which involves remembering events that have occurred in one's life. Okay, so this is my AO1 point. Here I have explained very briefly what episodic memory is. Importantly, I have named it, means I have done correct identification. Now I will link it to the scenario. In the given scenario, Lee, use wording from the scenario. Whenever you're answering AO2, use names from the scenario, use language which has been used in the scenario. That shows that you're contextualizing the point which you have made in AO1 to the scenario. So keep using words from there. Don't write vaguely. Don't write in abstract terms. There is a driving lesson which is mentioned. Why not write Lee is talking about his driving lesson? Be very direct. So in the given scenario, Lee describes remembering his first driving lesson and how difficult he found it, which is an event from his life, demonstrating episodic memory. Okay, my answers might seem a little lengthy to you. I always mention this in all my videos because I am explaining to you. As a teacher, I am making things very explicit. One thing is, you're not supposed to memorize these answers. You know, always different scenarios will come, and memorizing is not a good strategy at all. So when you write down, of course, you are not going to, this you're going to use as a reference. So when you read from you and you write down, of course, it will get condensed when you're writing. It's not going to be as elaborate as this. So you need not worry about how much length I'm writing in. Please keep your focus on how I'm structuring the answers and how I'm choosing to cover the content, how I'm meeting the assessment objectives. Don't get into superficialities of what is the word count or how much length is there. That's nothing to worry about. You always have to not worry but be focused about writing correct answers. Don't bother about anything else. When you're writing the correct answers using the right approach, automatically things like length, word count, everything is met. Okay, so I have also, before I forget, I will just prepare a PDF out of whatever I'm writing and I will publish it on my website. I will link it below in the description box and in the pinned comment so that you can review these answers later, and if you want to refer to them as you're watching this video, it will be available for download once I upload this video. Okay, next if we look at the scenario again, Lee also mentions, it's then Lee's quotation only, but now after driving for years, I can do it without thinking. We have learned that one type of long-term memory is procedural memory, in which we learn to perform some procedure. Usually they are motor procedures, like how to drive a car or how to ride a bicycle. And there comes a point with enough practice and rehearsal, we are able to perform those actions, those procedures without having to think about them. They become automatized. So when Lee says that now he's able to drive without thinking, that is indicative of procedural memory. So next we can talk about that. Another type of long-term memory is procedural memory, which involves remembering how to perform actions such as motor activities which become automatic after sufficient rehearsal and practice. Lee states that driving has become something he can do without thinking after driving for years, or after having practiced for years. I'm writing an indirect quotation, so that's why I'm adding something to it. Means what he's implying, I'm adding that. Suggesting that it has become a part of his procedural memory. Very quickly, now we look at the last type of memory which has been indicated in this scenario. Again, in this point, you must be able to see that as far as I have described in the first sentence what procedural memory is, that makes for AO1, and the remaining what I've written from B state, still procedural memory, that makes for AO2 because I've contextualized the definition. Okay, I want to keep this video brief, so I'll quickly come to the next one. Now, James also says something. He says he loved to drive cars and he would remember makes and models of cars that used to pass on the road. These are not event related information because he's not talking about any specific event of any particular car that he used to see driving by. In general, like as a form of general knowledge, he knew about the makes and models of different cars that used to go by the road. We have learned that semantic memory is the memory for general like facts and information about the world. So that is the memory which has been described here. So in the same format that we've answered the other two, we can answer this one also. Yet another type of long-term memory is semantic memory, which involves remembering general facts and information about the world. James remembers the makes and models of cars, or we can say James used to remember the makes, because we don't know right now he remembers or not, they've not specified. Used to remember the makes and models of cars when he was a child, suggesting that these were stored in his semantic memory. I know that in the paper as such, there is more emphasis on good terminology and showing adequate knowledge when it comes to the longer answers, the proper essay answers, not so much in 4 marks and 6 marks answers like the one which we've just written. It's just that I feel if throughout you take that approach of using good terminology, even if it's not a strict requirement for some answer, you get habituated to it, which is helpful to you only while writing essays. And also in future, like today in June 23 paper, this question has come for 6 marks, long term memory. Tomorrow this could be the one which comes for 20 marks in your paper, or if you're a UK AQA student, it could come for 12 or 16 marks in your paper. In that case, having the habit of writing in good terminology will help you then when the same topic comes for an essay. That time you will be able to address it very well as per the requirements of the 20 or 16 marker. That's why I insist that all answers try to write in a way that they meet good requirements which are given in the syllabus. Okay, then we have the 20 marker. I'm seeing that I unfortunately don't have that much time to write the entire 20 marker. I'll make an outline for it, a thorough outline for it. And I know that you can, whatever points I'll put down in the outline, you will be able to put them in paragraph format, in essay format. So I just want to tell you right now what I'm writing for the 20 marker. It's an outline. It's not the way you have to write, like I'm going to write it in points. That's not the way you have to put it in the paper. You have to put it in proper paragraphs in an essay. I'm just doing this because of a little time crunch which I am having. And from the answers which I've written before this, like the 4 and 6 marker, you must have got an idea of writing style also. Okay, now let's see what is the breakdown of 20 markers in our paper. Firstly, we should know AO1 in a 20 marker unless a scenario is given. Sometimes even for 20 markers, a scenario is given. This is a very simple 20 marker question. So unless a scenario is given for these type of questions, AO1 is worth 8 marks and AO3 is worth 12 marks. Again, no hard and fast rule of how we have to cover. I will try to upload a video and let me know if you want that, in which I will explain with the help of the mark scheme how to meet the top mark band requirement, like how to make sure your answer comes in the 20 marks, full 20 marks requirement, how you can structure your answer to make sure all those requirements of the mark scheme are covered in your answer. So I will make a video on that. As of now, I just want to continue the way I'm explaining the previous answers. So for that, there's no hard and fast rule. Like even if we see the mark scheme, they haven't specified how many evaluation points you need to give or how many descriptive points you need to give under AO1. But I would give you some suggestions according to me. This is strictly my personal opinion as I'm making the outline. What you should cover, how much you should cover, in my opinion, what makes good for a good writing style. Take it as a model of how you should write or a sample. Does not have to be fixed. You can take it as a sort of rough template on how you can structure your answer. If you're in the UK AQA syllabus, the same question, if it comes for 16 marks, then AO1 is worth 6 marks and AO3 is worth 10 marks. Just keep in mind whatever is the marks allotted to an essay type of question of this nature, in which description and evaluation is required, AO1 has less weightage than AO3 always. So phrase your answer in a way keeping this in mind. This is a very straightforward question, I would say. And I'm sure all the students must have really liked this question when it came in the paper. My students did. I'm sure the other ones also liked it because multi-store model is everyone's favorite. It's so easy to understand and you're always so prepared with it because it's the first one which comes. So you've learned it very thoroughly. So this is the that type of question which you should really try to score your best. This is where you can score your best, because sometimes when they give a scenario, students get confused. So here they've not even asked you for anything related to AO2. So this is where you can really score. Okay, let's see what all we can cover for AO1. These are my suggestions. There are lots of possibilities. If you see, there are so many textbooks and so many different points under every theory which is given. So there's a lot more I'm sure you'll be able to come up with which you can cover, and that will be correct as long as it is from a good reference book that you've taken. These are, according to me, the most important points which you need to cover for this topic in AO1. One I would suggest is, whenever you begin with the MSM, you should identify who has presented the models. You must name Atkinson and Shiffrin. In my opinion, the year is not very important, so you can just name them. After that, why did they propose the MSM? What is the purpose of this model? Many students directly they get into the components. So this is short term, long term, sensory memory. But in my opinion, before that, writing something in general about the MSM, its purpose, why it was designed, is better. It leads into the components. Then we can discuss the components. So MSM has been developed to show the multiphasic or the multi-storage nature of memory. And to simplify its understanding. Because so many processes are involved in memory. that becomes a whole complex system. So the researchers have just tried to break down and make it easy to understand by showing us what are the individual components and what is the relationship between each of these components. So that is just what I have explained very briefly. Now I can start addressing the components which are there. Of course, that is the most important part of MSM. Also, some students will ask me, do we need to generally define what memory is, like an introduction for a long answer? And do we have to have a proper conclusion in the end? No credit is given for introduction and conclusion. So I would suggest you avoid it. The paper is quite lengthy anyways. You have to write so much in just 1.5 hours. So why waste time in writing introduction and conclusion? And within the answer only, when you write things like this, like I said, if you give a general purpose of why the model was created, it's a kind of introduction which you are giving. Okay, now quickly to go through the components, you know them. Sensory register. You know, each component has its unique capacity and duration, and of course coding. So that is how each component is segregated from each other. So in fact, we can mention it following components with their individual storage, capacity, coding, and duration of holding information. So what happens is when we are writing about the components, like one, it helps to show how these components have been classified when I write a statement like this. Secondly, it's also useful to keep me on track when I'm writing the answers. When like students forget many things to write, like they'll say I wrote about sensory register and I just mentioned that it is there in all the 5 sense organs, but I forgot to write about how long it holds information or in what form it holds information. So if you write it this way, even you will remember to cover things which are important. Okay, so there's the sensory register or sensory memory. Depends which textbook you've referred to. Terms can be slightly different. As I mentioned in the beginning, good terminology which shows you're a psychology student that you should use. There's no insistence on some particular terms only which you have to use. So sensory register, if we talk about its capacity, is infinite because all the information coming into any of the 5 sense organs at any time is held by it. You can name the 5 sense organs, though not very important. So you can talk about vision, audition, gustation. That's up to you. But I would just say 5 sense organs. In terms of duration, it is very, very brief. Each sensory modality or each sense organ has its own duration for how long it can hold information. But on an average, or if we take the most commonly used sense, which is of vision, it's roughly taken to be about 2 seconds. Like max estimated limit is 2 seconds. So we can say duration is roughly on an average for 2 seconds. And if we talk about how it codes information, what form it intakes information, again depends on the sense organ. So coding depends on the sensory modality being used. Because there are so many modalities, there are 5, so it becomes very difficult to talk about each in given that there's only for 8 marks. So any one example we can give. So we can give a general point like, okay, depends on the sensory modality being used. For example, if it is in vision, it will be stored in visual form, in the form of imagery. And we don't need to elaborate further, like don't get into the anatomy of the eye or something. I've seen some students doing that, like how there are photoreceptors and all. Please don't get into that. That is not relevant to MSM. Okay, so make sure you stick to what is relevant. Okay, then we have short-term memory. As we keep on introducing more and more storages, what we can do is, we should not forget, many students forget about this, how one system is linked to the other in the model, how one storage passes on information or retrieves information from the other. They make no mention of that. They simply just describe sensory register, STM and LTM as if they have nothing to do with each other as separate individual components. So make sure as you're introducing, you don't need to write separately. You mention how it links with the previous storage, which we've already seen. So information which is attended to in sensory register comes into the STM. Now talking about the capacity is very limited, estimated to be 7 plus or minus 2 pieces of information. Here again many students get into the chunking study, Miller's chunking concept, or in the previous also they get into Stirling's experiments on visual memory for sensory register. One thing is those are more helpful for evaluation because you indicate that research evidence is there to support. Secondly, if you get into extreme details of only one storage, like you do an imbalanced coverage. I know a lot about STM, so I'll write a lot about STM. I don't know so much about SR and LTM, so I'll write very briefly. That's not a good approach. Take a balanced approach. They're asking you about the whole MSM. So all of them you should give equal weightage, all the storages. Not only that, you should also not get into unnecessary detailing of something because it's like they want to know about the whole model, comprehensive coverage of the model. That's what they want. They don't want to know individually what has been showcased in each area. They've not asked you to get into the depth of any of the storages. Otherwise, they could have just asked you, for example, describe short-term memory which is there in the MSM. But that's not how they phrase the question. Okay, so we just follow our template. Like I told, it becomes easy. Capacity, storage, capacity, coding, and duration. Duration of STM is also very brief, as we know. It's estimated to be around 15 to 20 seconds. So that's how long it can hold information. And coming to coding, it is acoustic. It holds information in auditory form. So all the information coming from any sensory modality is converted into an acoustic form so that it can be held in short-term memory. Finally, coming to LTM, long-term memory. Again, when you're writing, because you will be writing in paragraph essay format, so how you should put it is, write the full name long-term memory at least once. If you want to use terms like LTM, in the bracket first write LTM and then keep on referring to it that way, like I told you for the 6 marker. Okay, information which is rehearsed in short-term memory makes it to long-term memory. Okay, capacity is unlimited. Just now we wrote an answer also about long-term memory and we saw there can be facts, events, procedural information, how to carry a procedure. So unlimited in amount of information is there. Duration is for a lifetime. It's a permanent storage. So it is estimated that whatever information is there in long-term memory stays forever. It can get suppressed, but it does not get forgotten because, like we've seen, different methods have been used. Sometimes people claim they can't remember something from the past, but if we use a different method of recall, like recognition instead of recall, they're able to remember. So it is estimated to be permanent, never gets deleted. And if we talk about coding, coding is semantic. Information is understood and then it transfers to long-term memory. We don't remember facts as they are. We tend to remove meaning of information and we remember the meaning of whatever we have learned. So it is said to be semantic coding. Okay, also, like I mentioned, we should talk about the processes which take place. So I have mentioned attention and rehearsal. If you see, that helps to connect the storages. Also, short-term memory can retrieve information from LTM. That bidirectional process I need to explain. If you want for this answer, you can in fact draw a flow chart like you have in all your textbooks. That diagram of how sensory memory goes into short-term, then long-term. Only thing you have to consider, do you have the time to draw that? Otherwise, if you are effective in the way you write, the diagram is not very important. In case you want to show the link between the processes, you can draw it. Right now, I'm not drawing it. Okay, so coding is semantic and information when retrieved transfers from LTM to STM where it is put into usage or operation. I know there is much more that can be written in the sense of elaborative rehearsal, maintenance rehearsal, types of rehearsal basically, and types of retrieval as well, or how information can get deleted at any point from short-term memory, or some researchers even say, though most don't agree, that it can even get deleted from long-term memory. Of course, it can in the case of amnesia. But again, like I said, that gets into too much details for 8 marks. This much is enough for 8 marks because it covers all the essentials of the model, describing each of the components fairly, equal weightage to all of them, and all that is important. What Atkinson and Shiffrin have originally given, everything we have covered. Any excesses which are there, they haven't asked for. And if you feel something is particularly important, like say you want to discuss elaborative rehearsal and maintenance rehearsal, you can take it as a point in evaluation and show how that is a strength, maybe in applying the model to everyday life. So anything that you feel you really know well, it's a strength you have learned of yours, you have really learned it well, you can take it in the AO3 section as well. I feel here it will become very difficult to cover that much. Okay, so this is an outline of what you can cover in AO1. Very quickly, this also reminds me of how you can prepare sampling frames like they do in the revision guides to learn your answers. So you can make frames like this for different types of answers, especially for the simple ones. You can be ready with them with such outlines like I have made. Of course, for the ones in which AO2 is also involved, I'll try to cover that also very soon. So 20 marker in which you have an AO2 scenario, and so you need to take, for those you can take past paper questions or questions in any of your study materials, and you can prepare some outlines for them also. Those you cannot directly transfer to the paper because the scenario will always change, but at least you'll have a good idea of how to phrase your answer once you prepare the outline. So you can be ready that way. Okay, now let's quickly make an outline for AO1. This is where a consideration of how many points we should cover and all becomes very important. As you know, AO3 is all about strengths and weaknesses. In my opinion, I feel that you should cover 4 evaluation points, preferably 2 strengths and 2 weaknesses to give a balanced evaluation. It's up to you how many points you want to cover. In my opinion, why I'm suggesting this, because for UK students who have 16 markers and AO3 is worth 10 marks, I suggest that you should cover 3 points, 3 evaluation points, at least 1 weakness, 1 strength. Here, because it's worth 12 marks instead of 10, I feel you can cover 4. And because you need to take a depth approach. In my opinion, I always prefer a depth rather than a breadth approach. So no doubt you must be knowing of many more strengths and weaknesses than just two, because you've learned so much from different materials. But what they want to look at is, can you justify your points correctly? They want to see your critical thinking, not just how many points you're able to name. Okay, so you need to give a detailed analysis of every point to be able to show that you can really make the point relevant, you've really understood the evaluation, you are able to think critically. That you can do only with a depth approach. If you take, say, 6, 7, 8 points of strengths and weaknesses which you know, inevitably you'll have to shorten each point. You will have to write very briefly, because how will you cover so much details of 6, 7 or 8 points? So there you will be sacrificing depth for breadth. Otherwise, you will not be able to complete the paper. That is why I feel 4 points are ideal. You can cover them in depth. You can really show your critical thinking, that you fully understood those points. Plus, you can justify the 12 marks which are allotted to AO3 by covering 4 points. It's a good range also of how many evaluation points you can take. Okay, so I would begin with a strength first. I like to outline it also that way. Since I prefer giving 2 strengths and 2 weaknesses, I will cover 2 strengths first. Please follow the Peel format while writing. I have explained the Peel format, maybe not in my AQA videos, though I think I have, but otherwise in my CIE videos, the syllabus is slightly different from yours, but the Peel format, how to use it, in any of the videos in which I have covered 10 markers for paper 3 for CIE. You can watch that for the Cambridge board. I have explained how to use Peel format. If you would like me to make a video with an example from your syllabus, how to do the Peel format, you can comment below. So I will try to make a video on that as well. Right now, I'm not explaining what the Peel format is. That will be very time consuming, but I'm going to structure my answers in that format. So if you already know what it is, you'll be able to follow well. You'll be able to see that I'm using that format. One strength of the MSM, in my opinion, is it does have research support. That's the point I'm going to make. In the Peel format, we know what we have to do next. We have to say how. Now that the feature we have given as a strength, how is it applied in this model. So I will give, there are too many studies supporting, but I'll give the most famous one, the most classic one, Peterson and Peterson. So I will of course suggest that it's an example. It's not the only study which is done. So for example, the Peterson and Peterson study was done. Again, I might have learned it in a lot of details, but I can't cover that much for one evaluation point. Roughly one evaluation point is worth 3 marks, given that I'm covering 4 points. So I can't give a detailed summary of the study like aim, procedure, results and all. I can summarize it very briefly. What was the essence of it which supported the MSM? So Peterson and Peterson demonstrated that short-term memory lasts for 15 to 20 seconds. In their study, it was exactly 18 seconds. So we can give that, we need to be relevant to the study. So sorry, I was not supposed to write 15 to 20. I should write 18 seconds. Also, it cannot be completely devoid of the task. Just because I don't have scope enough to cover the procedure does not mean I will not talk about the task at all, which was done in the study. How they demonstrated it briefly, in 1-2 lines I will explain. By preventing rehearsal of trigrams in participants, by making them count backwards from 3 or 4 digits after learning them. Okay, so very briefly, the task also I've given and the result, that short-term memory lasts for 18 seconds. Of course, when you're writing, you can give a little more detail, but don't give a thorough summary of the study, like I said. So in the Peel format, first we explain how, then why is this a strength? Because it shows that it's empirical proof that STM lasts for a very brief duration as suggested by the MSM. So one component at least of that model is verified in this study, that it is actually the way it is proposed. Verifies the MSM, the STM component of the model empirically. And so to conclude or to link the strength in the Peel format, this increases the validity of the model. Another strength I would like to give is that this model has very good application to everyday life. So another strength. Also, when you're writing, also make sure you begin this really. One strength is this, second strength is this. Make it, use signposting and signaling like you've learned for your essay answers. So application to everyday life. Okay, application to everyday always means like practical usefulness of the study. Just a minute. Okay, I'm sorry, there was just something important. So another strength is application to everyday life. Application, as I was saying, it means practical usefulness, so not just the theoretical value of the model, that is explaining memory more. Many students write that. Explanation is not practical application. Where it can be used, you need to indicate that. So first, which is that aspect which is useful? Let's point out that it suggests that, again, it's an example. There are many applications possible. Out of that, we are taking one. It suggests that rehearsal can transfer information from temporary STM storage to permanent LTM storage. Again, because I've written about these processes in the AO1, so it makes sense also to connect it here in AO3. What if I've not written about this? Then the point would seem abrupt. So for a good quality of the answer also, we can prepare outlines and keep, because then we will write relevant points. AO1 and AO3 will be directly relevant to each other. Okay, now where it can be used, like why is this a strength? Students can use this information or this understanding to keep rehearsing information they learn while studying so that they can retain it for a long time. Here, if you want, like I was mentioning previously, you can give a comment on elaborative or repetitive rehearsal, that is maintenance rehearsal. So, for example, using a procedure called elaborative rehearsal, this is optional, you want to write on it. They could link new concepts with old ones, understand their meaning, relate them to everyday life, so that they transfer to LTM. So this increases practical usefulness. To conclude, this point makes the theory useful. Okay, let's quickly come to the weakness. One weakness of the model is that it is very reductionist. It's a reductionist view of memory. Why we are saying that? Because some of the storages which are described can actually be looked into at more length. It has underestimated the value, the potential of STM and LTM. For example, in LTM we saw there are types of long-term memories which have been discovered. That is not discussed in this model. But right now I would like to take the example of STM. So for example, STM actually has the capacity to not only store but manipulate information while performing cognitive tasks, as demonstrated by Baddeley and Hitch. So it might be better understood as a workbench that helps to work in arithmetic, comprehension of material. You can give some examples rather than just a passive storage. So this reduces the comprehensiveness of the model, or it makes it limited, or you can even say it's only a partial account of memory. And one more weakness is that it is it has been challenged. It's not maybe a very accurate model of memory, so it has been challenged by later models of memory. As we know, this is a classic one, so models which have followed it have challenged. There are many possibilities of models which you can give. I feel LOP is the best model we can give to show how it has been challenged. For example, the LOP levels of processing model by Craik and Tulving has suggested that memory might not be structured into well-defined storages. Rather, it is not stage-wise transfer of information. Rather, how information is processed that determines whether it will be stored over the long term or not. Here, because we are talking about LOP, a definitive model, we are giving as an example, we must give some definitive terminology from the model. Like we can't talk about it loosely. So we can say that in LOP, what has been suggested is shallow processing of information does not allow it to be stored permanently. But deep processing of information, like in the form of meaning of information, if that is understood rather than just seeing the structure of words or just rhyming words with others, so like parrot learning type. So if information is understood semantically or deeply, it does result in long-term storage. So better, some other models seem to be better able to account for memory. Maybe they are better accounts of how memory works. They're able to explain more accurately as compared to the MSM. So this could reduce the validity of the model. Okay, so that covers my AO3 points. I wanted to see how I've given a depth of information. Every point I have elaborated upon rather than just trying to include as many points as I could. And you can see AO1 as well. I know it looks lengthy, the outline, because this answer is worth 20 marks, so it is going to involve a lot of writing. Keep on writing even when you write your outlines. It gives you writing practice. Your hand keeps moving, and that helps you to ultimately gain speed. Why students are slow in writing the answers is, one, they're not prepared, so they have to think a lot, they struggle a lot while writing. That's the main reason why speed goes down. Second, writing practice is not there, just reading and reading from the textbook. So that approach is not good. Keep on writing, make your own answer frames, your own outlines, rather than relying on ready-made ones from revision guides or textbooks. Okay, so I hope this lesson has been helpful to you. I know there are lots of things I've not been able to cover in this lesson because of a time crunch. If there's anything you need more explanation for, or any type of video you'd like me to make, or any questions about these answers, this video, please post them in the comments box below. I will reply there. I also share my personal phone number and my email ID. That's not for asking anything about the videos. That is if you want tuitions in your AQA psychology. Okay, so please don't contact me there about any information on the videos on my website. Thank you for watching this video, and I will come back with another one soon. Goodbye.